Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome.
And we are live here for episode 2, the MCW Cast. I am Legacy MC of MCW, Larry Legend, joined by
co-owner MCW Pro Wrestling, Dan McDevitt.
I'm Tara Meyer, and I do the things here.
And we've got a very special guest in studio with us here.
John Minadakis.
Of Jimmy's Famous Seafood. That's right. Do it in stereo.
Fuel the MCW Cast by visiting buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast. And for just $3, you can buy the cast a coffee. Or you can choose to become a member of the cast for just $5 a month and get several additional perks. That's buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast.
Successful episode 1, rolling on to episode 2. But Dan, I remember at the end of episode 1, you were mentioning how you fans out there can support us. And I got to just say a huge thank you for all the support in the chat and on Twitter. But another way that you can support us is by buying me.
Yeah, buy us a cup of coffee.
Buy us a cup of coffee. It's a subscription service. Go to buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast. Thank you, Dan.
Well, actually, to interject there for a second, Larry, it is a subscription service or a one-time thing. So you can literally just buy us a cup of coffee.
Absolutely, and that's what I'm enjoying right now. It's cold in Baltimore. It's about 33 degrees, so if you want to show support for us, go ahead, subscribe, or one-time tip for a cup of coffee, and we'll talk about it. We'll shout you out right here on the cast. Right. We'll talk about what we're drinking, what we're enjoying, and don't forget about these nifty MCW Cast mugs. These are also available online, another way you can support us.
On Teespring. Yeah, teespring.com/MCWcast.
That's right. We got to pay the bills.
And speaking of which, I want to say a special shout out. Thank you to Al Brune, who bought us our first cup of coffee ever last week. Thank you very much. Longtime fan. And also a shout out to Ray and Danny Hess. Thank you for your support and thanks for checking out the show.
So thank you to everyone that's been reaching out to us, and thanks for the cups of coffee.
Yeah, got a lot of feedback. Saw in the different platforms we were streaming, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. A lot of comments and a lot of people personal messaging me on Facebook, and a lot of fans, that I haven't heard from in a while. So it was good to hear from them, and I was glad. That's the point of it, to reconnect. Yeah. To reconnect with our fans.
And, that's what we want to do. We want to hear from you fans for the entirety of the MCW Cast, and we're going to talk about ways that you can do that in this episode. We're going to talk about ways that you can connect with us, not just from buying us a cup of coffee, but also on the social media, how you can get directly to us during this episode. We're going to talk about ways of staying connected.
Absolutely. How about Twitter? They want to send us a tweet, #AskMCWCast.
That's right. That's a great call out, Dan. Also this episode, we're going to talk about last week's guest. There's an update, a big update on, MCW, kind of like number one son. I like to think of him, Leo Rush. So we're going to definitely cover what's going on in the world of Leo Rush.
Right in his MTV show.
Indeed. Yes, which was a big milestone for him. And of course, we had a legendary guest last week. Let's roll right into episode 2 with another legendary guest.
He's sitting right here, right? Don't ignore John Minadakis, Jimmy Seafood.
That's right, a local celebrity indeed. I was just watching you on the news, sir, and thank you for coming on here to your home away from your home at MCW Pro.
That's a great way of putting it, man. I definitely feel home every time I open those doors and when I pull up. So thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And you know what? I want to hear about the Indie Roundup. That was probably my favorite part of our podcast last week was the Indie Roundup. I'm ingrained in the Indies. I'm here, there, and everywhere. So I can't wait to hear from Phil again. This episode, the Indie Roundup number 2.
Yeah, and he'll give us an update what's going on. I know he was traveling this weekend. He was down at some shows in Florida, I think.
Yeah.
But we'll hear from him when we get to that segment later. He'll kind of cover where he was at.
Indeed. But as we started off with, we got to pay the bills. We got a lovely studio here. It's a little chilly, so the coffee's doing a body good. But right now, we're going to pause for station identification, and we're going to be right back and get this episode kicked off the right way.
Show your support for the MCW Cast while sporting some great gear by going to teespring.com/stores/MCWcast. You can pick up a full line of official MCW Cast merchandise, from coffee mugs and face coverings to t-shirts and sweatshirts. Visit teespring.com/stores/MCWcast.
Station identification. I love sending us to break. It reminds me of watching WWF superstars, and you'd hear, for more information on Coliseum Video, or something like that. I love that. Yeah, exactly. The bumpers.
All right, well, and we are back now, so thank you for that, Larry. So we want to start off with an update on our guest from last week, and our guest in studio, through Zoom, was Leo Rush. Now, Leo has been here with us at MCW. He's one of our first students. We talked about that last week. But as he explained when we talked with him.
Well, it got a lot of mainstream attention, actually, him eliminating himself from the show. And, obviously Leo's one of our kids. He's one of my students. I've had a lot of personal conversations with Leo over the years, so I'm always biased. But, to me, I always live by no one sleeps in your skin. And, especially nowadays in the world of the internet, everybody's got an opinion. And when you're someone like Leo that's in the public eye, whether it be in the WWE or on the MTV show, obviously everybody has a voice through Twitter and social media to kind of comment. But at the end of the day, no one sleeps in your skin. And to me, Leo made the best decision for him, his wife, his children, and his unborn child. And I support that because I love the kid. And if he did what he felt was right for his family at that time, then I got to support him.
Yeah, 100%. And if I could encapsulate one of the best qualities that I've learned of Leo is that he's a very noble individual. And if he walked away from this opportunity, then it definitely was for a reason that he can articulate, speak to, and stand behind. I think it was a very powerful move to have the one door closed, his WWE career closed on him. They didn't have a window open, but decide, you know what? This is compromising who I am mentally, who I am spiritually, and the best thing for me, and like you said, Dan, my family, is just to walk away. So noble and powerful is what I see that move as. Not even really knowing all the details. I know him enough as a man to know that if he made this decision, it was the best thing for him, his family, and just the qualities of a caring person.
Right.
And I'm going to prioritize that. I think that's such a powerful statement. And, like he was saying about being that role model to people, like, we need this, we need this kind of compassion and understanding, and not, labeling someone with a negative stigma because they've said, hey, this is affecting my mental health.
And from a professional standpoint, he's going to land on his feet anyway.
Oh, God, he already has.
Yeah.
Already has,
He's again, I'm biased, but, he's such a talented kid. So, yeah, he's going to be fine.
Yeah.
He's going to be fine.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one of the things that he had said in one of his Instagram posts, not the one that we just had up there, but he was saying that, so many things coming up. Because, like you said, Dan, he is a phenomenal performer. You said, Larry, he's, such a good person. And this is just the whole package here. This is, the evolution of Leo Rush. Yeah, I'm so proud of him.
We're getting to see him grow up in before our very eyes. And that's, he has no idea the impact that has on us, having seen so many come through the doors and just go on to the success. We're just all so proud of you, Leo. And, thanks for being the number one guest on our podcast. And like Dan said, he's going to land on his feet, already has. Sky's the limits.
Yeah, and we always got his back. He knows that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's right. All right, another thing, I want to give a shout out to Nick Camarado, who appeared on AEW Dynamite this past week.
Yeah, Nick, you looked really good on TV. I know John Moxley personally, and I know the type of real bruiser, pardon the pun, and do some good work with him. And I was highly entertained by that match, and good showing, Nick.
Yeah, they called him that when they were talking about it on commentary. They referred to his resemblance to Bruiser Brody, and that's definitely an association many people are making. So good luck, Nick, and we are really happy for you, and best of luck to you.
Yes, indeed. So I gotta chime in here real quick. A lot going on in the world around us, and with all of don't want to get too political here, but with everything that I've been seeing, I've been noticing that there's been a particular meme that's been popping up all over the place ever since the inauguration a few days ago at our nation's capital. And as a matter of fact, I feel like I saw one of those memes with someone sitting right here in the spot that I am, and I'm talking about the Bernie Sanders memes that have been all over social media. How about those?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, isn't it? That's what's so nuts about the internet.
So much overwhelming support and request for the mittens.
Oh, are you serious?
Oh my gosh, yeah, she's a woman in Vermont. Her name slips my mind right now, but the woman who made those mittens, not only have everyone been laughing about this, the humor of it, but they've also been like, I need a pair of Bernie mittens. They're even called that, the Bernie mittens.
The Bernie mittens. Oh, she's going to be a millionaire.
Yeah, well, she lives in Vermont already, so I'm sure she's doing all right.
She was a teacher or something, wasn't she?
Yeah.
And so she made them 2 years ago for him, and I thought it was interesting because the lining of the mittens are recycled bottles, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah, so, and that, Bernie is very environmentally conscious, so I thought this was great. And, they look warm and cozy. I mean, come on, I want Bernie mittens.
The mittens got over.
The mittens got over, yeah, right on. But Bernie was, like I said,
they should say Bernie 316 on the mittens.
You're right. Yeah, I mean, hey, it'll get over. They'll sell even more.
Yeah, Bernie 316. I just warmed your hand.
But you know what?
I'll look at him with Sammy.
So Bernie is actually. He's capitalized on this, and he's made a sweatshirt that you can buy that has his meme on it, and it is to support Meals on Wheels in Vermont, actually. So you can go to the website and buy the sweatshirt, and it's $45, and the proceeds go to fund Meals on Wheels, and they've already raised $45,000.
Wow.
Which I think is pretty great,
Yeah. Well, I guess I should hold my tongue when talking about, the median income of someone from Vermont, because with an organization like Meals on Wheels, that's critical in bringing food to the elderly, to people that are down and out on their luck. And that's all that Bernie's about, is taking care of your fellow man and woman. So
yeah, I think it was a good, heartwarming story that we need right now.
Absolutely.
And it was great. I loved it. And I think the best part that I liked about it, and many people mention this online, of course, is that he just looked like the inauguration was just a stop on his to-do list that day. Like, all right, well, as soon as this is over, I got to go and pick up some dog food.
Yeah.
I got to go maybe get a coffee, and maybe, and it just, it was very real and approachable, I thought. And I just like that about him.
I agree. That's a great way of encapsulating it. Very real and approachable and warmed the heart. So
it was. So thank you, Bernie, for warming our hearts this week.
And thank you for all the creatives out there on social media to take something like that. I mean, who do you think was the first person to be like, I gotta make this a meme?
And for non-intentionally stealing Joe Biden's heat.
Right. Came in
kind of like WrestleMania 3 Savage Steamboat.
Right.
Like they
stole Hogan and Andre. Yeah,
they didn't mean to, but they did.
It'll go down in history as being one of the best parts of that inauguration. Right. But speaking of Bernie supporting a good cause and putting that up there as a way to support Meals on Wheels, we're going to pause one more time just for station identification. We're rip-roaring. We got a guest here. We want to talk to him.
John, get right into this as soon as we get back.
Engage with the MCW Cast on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch for a chance to get your questions answered on a future episode of the cast. Or send us a tweet with the hashtag AskMCWCast.
We've got our guest here, John Minadakis, obviously a great friend, has become a great friend personally, but also Jimmy's Famous Seafood has become a great friend of MCW Pro Wrestling. John, man, really thanks for coming out.
Thanks for having me. It's a huge honor to be the second guest, and huge shoes, obviously, to follow with Leo, so I guess I got to do my best today.
Well, it's a lot going on, man. Like Larry, we were talking earlier. We were just in the news on Fox 45. Obviously, the big thing going on with everything going on in the world. I've always said about you guys, Jimmy's the thing that I've been most impressed about the couple years we've become good friends is how much you and your family continue to always give back to every organization that you can. And let's talk. Right now, you're doing you got a GoFundMe set up to help Baltimore restaurants. Obviously, Baltimore City. There's been a lot. The restrictions have been a lot tighter than surrounding counties. And I guess when they were shut down, indoor dining was shut down again in November.
Yeah. So his first day in office actually shut us down. So we missed out on the holidays. We missed out on New Year's Eve. We missed out on the most recent Ravens playoff run. And by we, I mean everybody, not just Jimmy's, right? So it was like a death blow, honestly, to a lot of these places. A lot of places have already closed up for good. A few are going to try and make a comeback when things do get better. But, based on which publication you're reading, the estimates are anywhere from 40 to 70% of restaurants won't make it back.
In Baltimore City?
Nationwide. In Baltimore City, based on the conversations I've had with everybody in the industry, you're looking at least half, which is really scary.
Right.
It's like a plague.
Yeah.
So, I had to do something about it, and we've kind of been very overwhelmed by the response. We've already saved 11 restaurants. We started this thing Monday night because we made the bet with Dave Portnoy from Barstool before the Ravens game that if the Ravens did win, I got to pick any Baltimore restaurant or bar that he has to save with his Barstool fund. So when the Ravens lost, I was really bummed, not because they lost, because I feel like I let somebody down. Like somebody's livelihood kind of depended on that bet. And we were already getting suggestions on social media from who we should select in the case that the Ravens do win, which we all expected. And just reading those stories was like heartbreaking. So I just sat down in front of my phone and dropped a 2-minute promo. I channeled my inner wrestler. And I just, it's like wrestling. When you speak from the heart, it's really easy.
Right.
And I just, I ripped it in 2 minutes because Twitter needs you to have it under 220. And the response has been overwhelming. We're almost at $300,000 raised. So that money goes right from the fund to these places that need it bad. We're putting a little bit of a wrestling/theatrical touch on it by having the celebrities call these people and let them know that not only they've been selected, but that they'll be getting the funds immediately, which is a little different from the Barstool Fund. But, Dave Portnoy is kind of like, at this point, a role model to not just me, but a lot of Americans, because he's the working man's hero right now.
Right.
And for us to be able to replicate that at a successful level locally is, to this point, the highlight of not only my professional life, but probably my personal life and definitely my philanthropic life as well. So I haven't slept much this week. My beard's getting a little thick here, but it's just like it's like a high, it's like a rush.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Dan, you can relate to giving back and helping out in times of crises. MCW for years now, one of our staple events has been the Shane Shamrock Memorial Cup, and that all sprung from that. What can I do? Your heart. What can we do for this family as they're experiencing a tragedy? And it goes hand in glove. What Jimmy's is doing, kind of the core of who we are, and that leads me to wanting to know. Johnny, you came into the MCW family around a time I wasn't really here. So how did this connection even spring?
So it's weird. I had heard about John a lot. We had mutual friends, and we were doing a show in Greektown, and that was probably 2014, 2015.
Yeah.
2014 or 2015, yeah.
I think so. I remember doing the show. I remember. It was great.
Yeah, the guy, Sam, that we were doing the show with, that was the sponsor, he said, you got to meet this guy, John, from Jimmy's Seafood. And I'm like, yeah, I've heard about John. I know he's a wrestling fan. I know, like there's you hear, that they're wrestling fans at Jimmy's. It's like a wrestling fan family. And that's how. And I don't even think we officially met. I think, because you were, we may have exchanged emails or text messages or something, but right around that time, we kind of met and just kind of hit it off. And right away, we kind of,
Yeah, I think Dan's missing a few parts.
It's been a while, right?
It's kind of like a 3-pronged introduction. With that Greektown show, they approached me, and they wanted me to be a part of it. And I was like, little bit of an egomaniac back then, and I was like, well, Sam's the show. I'm not sharing the spotlight with Sam. Like, if you want me, I'm the guy.
Right.
So I didn't want to bury you.
Yeah. So I was like,
I
nah.
was beating around the bush.
So but I was very familiar with MCW. My first MCW show put like the strongest impression in my heart because as an industry, as a company, we're very transparent with our customers. And I think that's why a lot of them feel like they're part of our family. And it was a Christmas show, and Kevin Nash had an altercation and couldn't make it. So Dan gets on the phone and gets Mick Foley here, but we still came to the show anyway. And Dan stood in the middle of the ring and talked to the people in the audience and told them exactly what happened.
I remember this.
And it just made such a strong impression on me, and that made me feel like this place is run like a family, and I want to be a part of this. On top of that, I remember Rich Swann coming out to Lionel Richie's All Night Long, which is one of my favorite songs. So the actual production and the performance in the middle of the ring was a lot higher than I expected. From you always hear these indie horror stories,
Oh, yeah.
and I was blown away. And the final part, Dan, I don't know if you remember this, and the two of you can probably attest to where I'm going to go with this. Dan was having issues with one of his food vendors, I believe, here at the time. So he was looking for an avenue to get Jimmy Seafood in here. And somebody told me, do you have time for a quick phone call with Dan? I took the phone call. It was supposed to be like a 3-minute call.
Oh, yeah. I already know where this is
know where this is going,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I'm like,
This is why we have a time.
and I was like, man, this guy can talk.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
It went for like 45 minutes.
welcome to our world.
So that was the introduction right there. It was a 3-prong. Those were my 3 first impressions of MCW, and the rest, as they say, is history.
So when you was their hesitance about doing the show back then because you thought it was going to be just like a typical what you would hear like just a
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It was in the Greektown Square, which is an outdoor space, and Sam's, no offense, not in the best of shape. So I'm like, they're gonna lump me in the same category as this guy, and I was taking really good care of myself back then. And I was like, I'm gonna have to pass on this one, man. If I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it right.
I managed Sam that night, actually.
Great guy.
Yes.
Great guy. But
Yes.
the spotlight's only so big.
There you go.
So I always say that I totally understand your thought process. I think when anybody in wrestling, like for me, I go back, there's always things that I take with me, like through my wrestling career, that there's a handful of things that really stand out to me that I remember. So like one thing I remember when I was going up and I was with Axel and doing ECW and going and trying to get on shows, I remember Paul Heyman talking about how when everyone comes to those shows, like ECW at the time, and at the time WCW and WWE was around, and he said, if it doesn't say WWF or WCW, everybody comes to those shows for the first time, comes to our shows, he was talking about ECW, thinking that they're coming to see a second-rate show.
Mm-hmm.
So from the moment we open our doors, we can't ever let anybody see second-rate. We have to work even harder to show them that we're not some second-rate show, because they're coming with a preconceived notion that they're coming to some second-rate wrestling.
And I remember seeing Patrick and Leo in that show too, and just being like really blown away by their gosh, what's the word I'm looking for? They had like an aura about them. At the
Oh,
time.
yeah. I
You
know
could
what you
tell,
mean.
especially Patrick. I was like, that guy
Yeah.
looks like a world
$1 million
champion.
bucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
So I always took that with me, and it was one thing that stuck with me, and I was like, man, it was like a light bulb. Like, that's so amazing, and that's so true. Like, and everything I've done in MCW, I've always tried to think, whether we're outside doing a show in a field at the Joppa Market or at the Green Room or in a food truck festival in Timonium. Like I've always said, no matter what, like we still have to make sure that we don't seem second rate, and that we give that impression. So
Yeah, I feel the same way about Jimmy's too.
Yeah,
That's
you
why
can
I
tell.
always have that chip on my shoulder
Exactly.
because people have a conception that it's in Dundalk.
Right,
So then
right.
they come there and they're blown away because,
Yeah.
and that's why I take a lot of pride in our beer list, for example, our wine list, because they expect to come there and just get a crab cake and a beer, a Coors Light, and roll out. But we have 50-something beers, and our staff is very knowledgeable on every kind of variety and what would pair well with which food. And they're like, wow, maybe this isn't just a hole in the wall in Dundalk, and they keep coming back. And once you get them the first time,
Yeah.
you get them hooked if you do your job.
That's
Right.
right. Yeah, our fans are some of the loyalist fans I've ever met in my life, and we hooked them once, and we keep coming. They keep coming. We keep putting out for them.
Yeah.
And actually, that's what I wanted to bring up. We've had over the years lots of different non-wrestling celebrities or appearances.
Oh, yeah.
Over the years, some better than others, and. Not just us, but wrestling in general has, the Hall of Fame has a whole category for celebrities.
Celebrities, yeah.
And I would have to say most of them have missed the mark, where, there was just one, a few weeks ago on, what was it,
Snoop
Snoop Dogg.
Dogg. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So, it's those things.
He's
when
in
you
the Hall of Fame?
No, but
Oh.
he was on a show.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Well, he's
when-
probably going to go in the Hall of Fame.
Right. When you see stuff like that, it's you just cringe and you're like, oh my gosh, like you're exposing the business, you're making it look like crap. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think that's kind of always that reputation is out there whenever you bring a non-wrestler into a promotion for an appearance. And I wanted to say to you that when you decided to come into our family, so to speak, you gave it 110%, much like you do with your restaurant. And I know that Bruiser had trained you, and I've told you this before, but I'll tell it to our fans. He was so blown away by the level of professionalism. Whenever we would have these guests come in, they'd always get, shoved over to RJ, and he'd have to train them and turn them into wrestlers, in a couple of days of training. But with you, he was so blown away by your commitment and that you took it seriously. You looked like a wrestler number one. You came down, you trained, you did all the things, and that made it so much better.
Yeah, well, that's probably why I was so hesitant to do it in the first place, because anything I do, I don't want to half-ass it. And then when I came in here, I had no clue what to expect. And the first thing that struck me was the culture. And it starts from the bruiser and it goes all the way down to the newest student. And I was not expecting that kind of torture, honestly. Like, I have so much respect for professional wrestlers since going through that training. I could never do it for my livelihood, especially when they're doing it 5-6 days a week and being on the road and being away from their families and taking those kind of bumps. And I thought about quitting, and I was going to approach Dan and Dean and say, "Hey, how about I just do like a chair shot and get the hell out of here?" But I didn't want to quit. I didn't want to let anybody down, and that's why I have so much more respect, not only for MCW but the industry as a whole. And that's what made me want to start getting involved professionally with MCW, because I saw the men and women that are in the back, and when you have a foundation like that, you're going to go far, far, far away. And it's in any industry, but just a really special locker room back there. The culture is second to none, and I've always told Dan to shoot for the stars a little more so than he has and fill up an arena or something. But, I think MCW is a very special place, and you talk about the fans. When you see the same fans in the same seats every week,
Yep.
it's just a testament to the consistency and the dedication that the product's putting out.
And the same can be said about your restaurant. I see people posting the same, people posting. It's funny because many of them are our loyal fans as well. And, as soon as your restaurant opened up again last week, it was, hey, we're going to Jimmy's, and it's the same kind of
There's a lot of
testament.
crossover. And, I'm not a dummy. I know that they can get food anywhere else. And I think we do have very good food, but I think there's other places that are comparable. But they come there because they feel part of the family. And we make it our point to make them know that they are indeed part of the family. Like when we first opened yesterday, I know like Jalen Masters was there, Dawn was there.
Yep.
I mean, that's amazing. Like you're only open for a few hours, and here come people that from MCW for more, for better or for worse. That's where we know them from. They may have been customers before, but we know them as MCW people.
Right.
So it's amazing.
I love how they were chatting online. Hey, I'm in the dining room. Come up and see it. Like, that's great. And that's that family atmosphere. You have it in your restaurant. We have it here, and we're combining. Like, it's amazing, powerful thing.
It is. And if you run your business that way, I think that, you'll withstand pandemics, depressions, because you're doing the right thing, and people see that. And I saw that the first time I came here, and we weren't expecting much. I forget who you were advertising that. I think it was Kevin Nash. So we were all off of work, and I said, let's go check out this MCW thing. And you're expecting like the gym bleachers, like that you see on It's Still Real to Me, damn it, that guy.
Yeah.
Right.
And I was, it was organized. We were, told where our seats are. There was people collecting the ticket stubs. There were merchandise tables, and we all left here, me and my friends, and we're at the time probably in our early 30s, late 20s, and we were just so blown away, especially for the money, because it was the week between Christmas and New Year's,
Right.
which. Frank Remish is a very great friend of mine. He's the president at the arena, and he told me that the Saturday between the Christmas and New Year's is the busiest one of the year for the WWE, because everybody's off of work. They have money to spend from their gift cards that they got for Christmas and whatnot. And we had just finished going to a WWE show that Saturday, and we left thoroughly unimpressed. It was just very cold. And then you came for probably $75, $80 a piece.
Oh yeah.
And then we came here, and it was probably like $15.
$20,
we were like,
yeah.
so much better.
$20.
Like we were just like, wow, that was so much better. We feel like we got our money's worth, and that owner seemed like a real cool guy. So we should definitely start going back. And we all started coming back after that, and that was kind of like our that was our transition from like the young partying crowd to, all right, we're adults now. On Saturday nights, we'll go to Joppa and we'll just watch an MCW show.
Absolutely. Yeah, we gotta take a quick break, but I want to just call out, Johnny, it's so amazing to me that you mentioned that story about going to see a WWE event, in the December time and real low energy. Mm-hmm. You come to an MCW event, and one of the names you mentioned there that really hooked you was Rich Swann.
Yeah.
Who I guarantee you that not too long after you saw him on the MCW show was whisked away to NXT. Mm-hmm. And that just goes to show you how, they have their eyes on the real pulse of the industry, which is in companies like MCW. We can talk about it a little bit more, but we do need to take a real quick break.
Yes.
Stay with us. We'll be right back here with our special guest, Johnny Crabcakes.
All right, we are back. We're still here with John Minadakis. He's from Jimmy's Famous Seafood. I'm joined with Larry and Dan. And we're going to keep talking about this wrestling connection that you have personally and also with Jimmy's Famous Seafood. So you recently were named one of the top 10 destinations that wrestling fans should go to. Now, on this list, there's also the Tokyo Dome, the Performance Center, and Jimmy's Famous Seafood. Number 5 on the list here. Tell us a little bit about that.
I mean, I was shocked, obviously. I get the Google alerts, and I saw what it was about. I said, no way. And then, you're going through the list. I think the ECW arena was 8 or 9. Mm-hmm. No way Jimmy's should be ranked higher than the ECW arena. Let's get that out of the way first. So I think maybe it is one of the 10 places every wrestling fan should visit, because they can actually get a meal there instead of staring at something. But it was really humbling. It was really humbling, and I know that we've kind of cemented our legacy now as the wrestling place alongside. I think there's a place called Calhoun's in Boston, okay. And of course Ribera. And I was just really it gave me like goosebumps, because we've always been very outgoing about our support for professional wrestling, right? And I could tell you guys stories from when I was a child and living upstairs on top of the restaurant. The cable would run from the apartment to the downstairs bar, so there'd be a packed bar watching Monday Night Football, which was relevant at the time, and I would be flicking between Nitro and Raw. My dad would be calling upstairs, there's people down here watching football. You need to put it back on. Oh, man.
Oh, wow.
So this is before texts and this is before emails. So I would go to school the next day. I'm like, guys, what happened last night? I missed it. They're like, oh, man, you didn't see it. And this is what happened. I was like, I felt like so ripped off. So, you would always kind of hope for a bummer Monday night game so you can watch a little bit. But, yeah, it's amazing. we embrace wrestling fans, and a lot of eateries don't, because we, as fans, and I'm one of you, we have this like bad reputation as these booger eaters that just nurse a soda the whole time, so they don't want them, and that's why the companies that we buy the pay-per-view events from, they charge a fraction for WWE and AEW events that they do for UFC and boxing, because they have this stigma about them that you're not going to attract the crowd you want. Especially with AEW being on a Saturday night, you don't want to have let's say you have like a packed dance floor, or you're a place that plays live music. You're not going to want to have what they call the black shirt mafia coming in, ordering a side of fries for 3-4 hours watching it. So we don't care about that. We're one of you, so we want you to come here and have a great time. And we're going out of our way to give you unique experiences. We've done a million live podcasts with Conrad.
Right.
Before the most recent lockdown, we had a socially distant one with Matt Cardona and Brian Myers. And it's just a really cool place for wrestling fans. And there's wrestling items on the menu now. There's the Roman Reigns roll. There's the Bruiser Burger. Mm-hmm. So they can appreciate that, and they really feel that they're at home.
Right. And what's something that's amazed me over the years that I don't think people still don't understand. And whenever I have these conversations with people, they're like, "Oh, really? That's how it works?" When talking about like Jimmy's or other restaurants that have done them, what people don't understand is with the pay-per-views, you don't just pay, as a restaurant doesn't just pay like the $49 or whatever for the pay-per-view like you would do at home. You pay based on fire code.
Yeah, capacity.
Mm-hmm. So and they're like, "Oh," and I'm like, "Yeah." So when I've always and push people to go, I'm like, yeah, you should go and make sure you eat and buy a couple drinks and tip the staff, because you're talking could be a couple $1,000 sometimes to what I mean.
Absolutely.
These pay-per-views, it's not. And
people are always $12.50 is the going rate for most events.
Yeah, so there you go.
But you mentioned the staff, and the one thing I forgot to mention is the staff loves the wrestling events because they are the kindest people in the world. They are, wrestling fans. Like they're first of all, they're always on time.
Right. Don't want to miss one thing.
Like they're waiting outside. If it's a 7 o'clock start time, they're outside 6:30, waiting in line respectfully. But they're so courteous. They tip well, and they love it. And our staff loves it in return. And they love when most of them don't watch wrestling, so they don't get the chance. Mm-hmm. They're like, "What are they saying?" Yes, I'm like, "Yeah." Right. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Well, I worked in bars and restaurants for a number of years, for 15 years, and one of them was a sports bar, locally known for their wings. We'll just leave it at that. And they were trying to figure out how to increase business on Sundays and Mondays. And I was like, well, have you ever thought about showing, the pay-per-views? And the managers were like, what? So there we embarked on this, showing the pay-per-views. And this was when it was, WWF, WCW, and ECW. We showed that. We did the Monday Night Wars. So it was great. The managers were loving it because people were sitting in the seats. The servers hated it. They were like, this is the worst thing ever. I can't believe you did this. And it was, but this was 20 years ago.
I mean, we're a different bunch as wrestling
20
fans
years
for
ago.
sure.
Actually, yep, absolutely. So that says a lot. Number one, for the wrestling fans, good job not, stiffing the waiters and waitresses. But, just that kind of culture. And I think, too, it's local. Like, I don't know that would transfer to every town drawing it.
I've been to wrestling events in like Philadelphia and Tampa, and they, it's probably more of a tourist thing because it's based around a pay-per-view. But wrestling fans, we get a bad rap, but I think we've definitely evolved because wrestling's gone more mainstream lately. So I think we're attracting more of a crossover audience as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you one reason why I may think that you're so high on the list for being a wrestling destination is because when you go into Jimmy's and you see that wall of fame, if you will, of so many wrestling personalities, AEW, ROH, MCW, fans sometimes are around Jimmy's just thinking, hey, you never know, WWE's in town. They might all go there right after Raw, you know what I mean? Yeah.
You definitely see that.
Well, that's the most common one for sure. But, the guys stop in. If they're in Philly on a Friday and have to be in Virginia on a Saturday, guess where they're going to stop for that 1 o'clock crab cake? Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And I think that's how it started with Jimmy's is the guys are on the road 6 days a week, 5 days a week, and their options are pretty limited by the time they get out of the show, especially if they're on later in the card. So it's either Denny's or a place like that. So when you come to Baltimore, it's pretty cool that you have a place serving pretty good food, and they're very friendly towards wrestling fans. So I think that's how it all started, and it's not a recent thing. I remember being a kid, and Mr. Wonderful would come in, Bam Bam Bigelow, Jeff Jarrett, Owen Hart, but social media wasn't around back then,
Right.
so there was
And your
nobody
dad,
to
right?
spread the
Nobody
word.
knew.
Yeah, my dad.
Your dad took care of them.
Exactly. My dad was taking care of the guys, and I have a picture on Mr. Wonderful's lap when I was probably 4 or 5 years old. And then with social media and the guys being able to publicly say, hey, I was at Jimmy's when I was in Baltimore, it spread like wildfire pretty quickly.
I really feel like that Ring of Honor, I feel like that really started bubbling a lot with the social media with Ring of Honor. I was with them for a little time, and I remember just looking at Twitter and all of the guys, Kyle O'Reilly, Bobby Fish, shout out to Jimmy's, just left there. It was delicious. And the next thing I know, that
Well,
Wall
that
of Fame
definitely
was...
helped get it over, and you got to give, to what you guys have done social media wise. It definitely took that to the next level,
Yeah, absolutely. And then, you got the main, like, quote-unquote Jimmy's guys, Roman, Braun, like, Jericho, always talking about Jimmy's, and that goes a long way because those guys get probably paid a lot of money to endorse places.
Right.
And it's organic. And wrestling fans know better than any other fan base out there what's real and what's fake.
Right.
So they know that, man, that's pretty cool. They enjoy it there. I'm gonna go try the Roman Reigns roll. I'm gonna go try the Bruiser Burger. I'm gonna go try the UFO that Braun ate. And it's better than going to a McDonald's, or it's better than going to even like a Ruth's Chris, because there's no connection there for you as a wrestling fan.
Right. And these aren't just random wrestlers stopping in. You have close friendships with many of them. In particular, I want to bring up Roman Reigns.
Yeah, I mean, that's my guy.
You guys look like you could be brothers.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
So we got to go into we got to tell a little bit deeper story here, which is just hilarious to me, because when we started to get to know each other and become friends, back a couple years ago, and started hanging out, and more of these guys started coming in, like, you actually had a sign in there that said, like, there were certain wrestlers that were banned, and you hated Roman.
no.
Or no.
No.
You
Hold on. Backtrack. So we had the Bard and Each Free list, and he did something like that week on the show.
It was on the show.
Yeah.
Right.
So hold on. So he made the Bard list that week. That fast forward to Sunday, Dan was somewhere with him, and he was like, look, and Roman was apparently thumbing through the menu at Jimmy's. Like, man, I can't wait to go to this place. And my fiance, who was my girlfriend at the time, she said, I told her, I said, the guys are coming in Monday night. We're probably going to be at Jimmy's late. And she's like, not unless Roman Reigns is there, because she loves him. And I'm like, all right, I'll make sure he's there. So she's like, Dan was with him, and he was like, hey, you got to come to Jimmy's tomorrow. He's like, I'm already looking at the menu. So they come in that night, and gosh, I feel terrible like putting it out there. He drinks like 20 freaking Oktoberfests in like 2 hours. I mean, he was outpacing everybody. And I'm like, man, this guy's cool as shit. And on their way out, everybody, they took pictures with all the fans, obviously. And we gave them all T-shirts. And he's like, man, this is an awesome place. Who's the owner? I'm like, I'm the owner. He's like, what? He's like, I was younger at the time. He's like, no way. Because when you think of restaurateurs, you think of like these fat slobs that are just eating all the profit. And I think that's the biggest first impression that a lot of the talent takes away. Dan said that Mickey James, when she first met me, was like, there's no way that's the owner. Because I try to take care of myself. But, yeah, Roman's the man. He's somebody that I think we all look up to, somebody that we look like.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And, there's definitely a physical resemblance there to an extent. I love his calm confidence. He's a leader. I've gotten to know him. The way he fought cancer and beat it twice, really resonated with me. I lost my father to cancer. We lost a bruiser to cancer. So he's just a really well-rounded, you talked about Leo's integrity earlier. He just always makes the right decision. And anytime that I'm down or faced with adversity or have a decision to make, he's the first text that I send out, and he always puts me on the right path every single time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and just an
Yeah.
all-around good dude with his charity and the things that he does for kids.
I mean, if I told you don't know 99% of it.
The fans don't. That's what, he's a guy that I see. You know, another one, like, for years, like the internet would like rag on Matt Hardy. Now Matt turned that, like, with a broken Matt, you know what I mean, character. But I'd always, like, if the internet would rag on the Hardys or whatever, I'd be like, man, you guys have no idea how good of a dude Matt Hardy is, and Jeff, you know what I mean, how good the Hardy boys are. Just amazing human beings. And Roman the same way. So he's one I'd see as a promoter, you know, because the WWE was because of Vince, really the machine at the WWE made Roman the man, and then fans, you know, it's like, you know, it naturally,
fans want to be in control, so they wanted it earlier. And you know, to their credit, like WWE probably should have done it earlier. Right? They were like, we wanted it then, we don't want it now. And fans are, you know, as Daniel Bryan says, fickle. But right now, he's being himself.
Yeah.
And it's finally a pleasure to watch. I can't wait till the fans are back to see this incarnation of Roman in front of the crowd. Yeah. Because, you know, fans are funny, so they might cheer him now. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
instead of the piped-in audio
Right.
of the crowd cheering, we might get a real reaction.
point is, he's a real good dude,
Yeah.
and then since then, you guys have become great friends, and he's done some Make-A-Wishes for you, and
he's done anything that we have involved in charity. He does without even asking Vince or anything like that, because they have a million holes to jump through now. He did the video for the Bruiser when we had the event. He did a video most recently for our Toys for Tots event. He's going to be doing a phone call for one of the restaurants that we're saving sometime this week. It'll probably be out there. So, you know, he's got the biggest heart ever. We did the Make-A-Wish together, which, I mean, if I told you guys the 8 different things he had to move around to make that thing happen, you wouldn't believe me, but he does stuff like that all the time, man. Like, there's a lot of anonymous donations right now on that restaurant page, and you guys can figure it out, man. Like, he's not about the glory. He's just about doing the right thing and doing it every time and doing it consistently. And he's just a good role model, I think. And I think when the book is closed on him, people are really going to regret that year or two where they kind of turned on him.
right, absolutely.
Yeah, they'll probably forget about that. I mean, the one thing that wrestling fans
they
are
are
also,
fickle.
it's not just fickle. It's like Dan, you used to always say it's bubble gum. Once it loses its flavor, they're on to the next piece. And that other piece is gone. That flavor's out of their mouth.
I also don't know how long they can keep him.
Oh, yeah, before Hollywood.
Yeah.
You know, he's definitely on that path.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's, in my opinion, I'm biased. I just think he's a better looking Jason Momoa at this point, and he'll start taking roles from him at a minimum.
Right.
If he's got any acting ability at all, so I feel like he's doing this almost as a favor to the WWE. This is my opinion, and in a year or two, he might be gone.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the way it was with The Rock. And even to this day, you know, it's kind of like, I'm always going to help y'all out. Y'all are, you know, what got me to the dance, but I'm the highest paid guy in Hollywood, so I got things to do.
At a minimum, I think he can reach Cena's level.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I think too that there is also that, you know, like Steve Austin talked about it. There is that struggle of stepping away from performing. You know,
Does Steve Austin have kids though?
Oh, yeah, he's got 2 daughters.
He does.
He's got the 2
Roman's
daughters.
got a lot of kids now, so he's got to start
he's
thinking
got
about
a
them
lot.
too. You know, I'm sure he's getting used to being home every day but one and
Right.
watching his kids grow up. So, you know, when that schedule picks up again, if it does, and they got to be on the road 5-6 days a week, he might be second guessing it.
Yeah.
Could that be when he segues into a part-time role as,
maybe.
you know, The Rock and John Cena and some other
I think I read somewhere that they're going to do away with the house shows when they get back.
Probably. Well, they were.
Okay.
I mean, that was something you read about, and I read about. It was really just they did it. I guess the couple years before everything fell apart in the world, the house shows was kind of a dying model that they just continued to do it for the reps, so that mainly so the guys could get the reps in. I mean, the benefit of the house shows was guys being able to get in the ring with each other and work leading up to big pay-per-view matches and be able to see like live reactions at certain things, certain points in the matches, and be able to tweak things. And then for obviously the greener guys or younger guys to kind of just get the reps in and being in front of people. But it seemed. I mean, the last couple of years, the house shows just weren't the same.
Yeah.
I feel like the house shows were very good for families. And that's kind of
that's
it.
Good, right?
That's really it. I think number one, they did it for the families. Number two, to sell merch, and number three, just to see what does and doesn't work, because they could try some new stuff out.
Yeah, the thing I didn't like about the house shows is that well, at least here in Baltimore, they'd have them at the same arena that they'd have the pay-per-views. So, and they'd charge the same ticket prices. So I feel like if they were going to come back and do house shows, maybe look at some of your community college auditoriums, or the way like NXT runs.
There's a lot of politics there, though.
Right.
I'm sure there is, and there's contracts and stuff. But I'm just saying, as a fan's point of view, I don't want to spend $70 for a house show seat. You know what I mean?
See, personally, I prefer the house shows to the live.
Well,
gosh,
I do
yeah.
too. But cost-wise, and then also I feel like it just kind of diminishes the luster of the big pay-per-views if you're having house shows in the exact same arena. I'll go to a house show before I'll go to a pay-per-view or a regular Monday Night Raw or something like that. But in fact, the last WWE show I went to was a house show. So I do prefer that, but I just think that having it, and like I said, that's in this town. It's in the exact same arena as the bigger shows and the pay-per-views, and I just feel and they're kind of cost the same.
I think we're spoiled here in Baltimore because we are considered a large city. But when they go to these towns like South Dakota and stuff, I bet you on a Tuesday night, it's the only game in town.
Oh, I'm sure.
They're probably so
Oh,
appreciated to have them there.
That's why I said
Even probably the
that's what I hear.
Salisbury shows as well.
Well, that's where NXT started running. And back in the day, WWF used to do the Salisbury smaller shows. I think you hit the nail on the head with the merch. Remember, now we have the internet. I remember at one point, if you wanted to get a replica toy belt, you had to wait till WWF came to town to go to the new T-shirt or exclusive stuff. And now all of that stuff's right at everyone's fingertips.
It very well might be an outdated model.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you know what isn't an outdated model, if I could jump in here, and that's all of the different, we talked about Buy Me a Cup of Coffee, Patreon is a big one right now, but also GoFundMe. And Johnny, I know that in particular you have a GoFundMe that's going right now. We flashed it up there on the screen there, and if you wanted to contribute to it, we want to show you how with this next brief interlude, and we'll be right back.
All right, here in Baltimore, it's called Baltimore for a reason. We're a big little city. Now, unfortunately, because of that, within 15 minutes, you can get in a car and go to any surrounding county. And with the new indoor and outdoor dining ban, which has gone on for weeks and months with no end in sight, unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of our customers, a lot of our employees go out into the county and support these restaurants that are open. Now, safety's always been number one, first and foremost for all of us and for the county restaurants, which is why you're seeing these caseloads decrease in the county despite the restaurants being open. What's happening now, though, is tragic. These city restaurants are struggling. They're not going to make it through the next couple of weeks. They're not going to make it through the next couple of months. You cannot survive on carryout only. You cannot pivot to change your model like that. What you're seeing is people that are holding on by a thread. We need to be there for them. We need to help them. Unfortunately, the Ravens didn't win, so I didn't get to pick a place for Barstool to help. And we've been so fortunate as a city. Barstool's already helped a few restaurants here in the city, but we can't count on them. We have to be there for each other. We have to show the world what Baltimore is about, and that's what I'm here for today. I don't have a catchy name for it. I don't have a catchy logo for it, but we are gonna raise money, and I'm gonna do everything in my power. I'm gonna call in every favor that I have to raise over $100,000, and we're gonna support these places that have been showing up in my mentions like crazy. G&A Restaurant, 90 years, the Chaucer, Shoddy's Point, as I mentioned, the Angle Inn. We've already started, helping them out as much as possible. We've already raised over $15,000 for them. Sliders by the stadium. These places won't be there when this pandemic's over if we don't step up right now and help them. You're gonna see a McDonald's there. You're gonna see a Burger King there. You're gonna see a TGI Fridays there. All these places that you have so many memories in are gonna be gone. We have to step up. We have to save them. We have to be there for each other and show the world what Baltimore's all about. We're blue collar, we have strong stock, we're about neighbors helping neighbors, and there will be no bar left behind. Baltimore, we have to rise up together right now. They need it, they need our help, and we gotta show the world what we're made of.
And we're back live here, episode 2. Last we showed you charitable organizations, the GoFundMe that Johnny Crabcake set up for the rest of the restaurants that are suffering right now in the Baltimore area, local hero, if you will, to a lot of folks that are, having troubled times right now. But we wanted to talk a little bit more about giving.
That's right. John, can you tell us a little bit about how you got into this philanthropic
I knew what you're trying to say.
Word.
Philanthropic. Philanthropic
role, because you're really a pillar in the community. And can you just tell our fans and our viewers a little bit how you got onto that journey?
Yeah, it's two-pronged. First of all, obviously anybody here can attest to this. It all starts with parenting. And my father used to beat it into our heads that, he came here literally with nothing in his pocket, didn't know the language, and the community embraced him. And they would
real
also,
American dream.
Yeah.
There you go.
And he would say, this community gave me everything I have, so you have to give everything you have back. And the next part of that was, and you're going to find this out with your son, Loyola. It's like a really special place. And of all the takeaways that you get from there, and they had me for 7 years, middle school and high school, is to be a man for others. And that goes with most Jesuit schools. They teach you that, and you go on retreats, and it's a way of life. And then, I've been fortunate enough to have a little bit of success here recently, and I've just been able to amplify my efforts. We've always had a semblance of giving back in the business model. It's who we are. It's part of our DNA. But things have kind of gotten cranked up a little bit because people need a lot more now. So I would obviously love to help everybody I can, but we're doing everything we physically can do right now. And all the charities that we work with, Sugar Soft Side, Special Olympics, nobody's being left out because of the pandemic. So just because we're not at 100% doesn't mean that we're not going to give them 100%. So we pulled off Toys for Tots virtually this year. Same amount of toys, if not more, a ton of money. Shout out to Chris Jericho. He dropped a $400 donation in there. So that was amazing. And most recently with this, I really feel I think everything that I've done in my 37 years has led me to this moment right now with what I'm doing, what Baltimore's doing. And I just kind of cashed in all my chips. I called in every favor that I had, and and I'm not even 40% of the way through it with my Rolodex. So I'm going to be, it's amazing seeing these calls. And I don't know if you guys saw the one that we did yesterday to the magician, and that one really hit home with me because this kid, his family's been in the entertainment industry their whole life. Entertainment meaning like circus, and his father was actually Ronald McDonald for 20-something years.
Oh, wow.
And they took everything they had. They opened a place called Illusions downtown, and it's like a magic theater / bar.
I've been there. It's awesome.
And apparently
I've been there.
His father died 5 years ago from cancer. So I'm like, man, this is hitting home big time. And they can't open because they don't have a kitchen. So this kid's been taking jobs like busboy jobs and stuff like that just to make ends meet. So we hit him with a call yesterday and told him that he got selected. And there's so many more of those, right?
Oh, wow.
And I don't want to give away like who's next on the list, but there's some really cool stories coming up. And cool meaning like when they look back on it and it's a happy ending, it's cool. Right now they're going through hell. So we're doing everything we can to raise funds. This guy Marcus Lemonis has already dropped $40,000 into that fund. One we get to $350,000, he's going to put another $20,000 into it. A lot of the Ravens stepped up in big ways. Marlon Humphrey $10,000, Ronnie Stanley $10,000, Trey Mancini from the Orioles put $5,000 in today. And the minute it comes in, it goes right out. We make a decision. What the committee does, I'm not involved in it anymore. We find a celebrity, make a phone call, and we get them the money. It's the coolest thing ever right now.
Great.
It really is.
And I don't know when this stops. I don't know if it stops because people are going to need help for a long time. But you guys know when in the wrestling business, man, like when you catch fire and the timing's right, you got to ride that wave, man. So
that's right.
If we have a stone cold like run with this thing for 2-3 years and we can help out as many people as possible, we'll keep it going. At some point, I got to transition it off the Jimmy social media because we're not even advertising like crab cakes and stuff anymore. It's all like, hey, we need your money to save these other restaurants.
Well, now, is this trend and this movement going to spread? What do you think
so
about
because you said you saw me on Fox 45, but I've literally done every media that I can do this whole week. Fox 45, WBAL. One of my best friends right now has become Rick Ritter from WJZ. So
right on.
he's always putting us on WJZ as much as he can. At some point, I do expect like the wrestling sites to pick up on this because the wrestlers are becoming involved with it. I'm just, Rick always told me never say no to any media because you never know where it could end up. So if
Absolutely.
a podcast that you're going to mock because it's like two guys in the basement has 3 listeners, one of those 3 listeners might become a customer and spend, $100 with you for the next 20 years.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, we're just trying to spread this message as much as possible. If a national outlet comes along at some point, I'd love to talk to them. But I think this is national news because of social media. This guy, Marcus Lemonis, he's got a CNBC show. He's adopted by Greeks, and he's, really become touched by this. Like, he has millions of followers, and he's checking in on this seafood restaurant in Dundalk.
Right.
To see how far along they are. And just today he tweeted at us, hey, pick up the pace. I'm trying to give you more money. So, I'm hitting up a couple NBA guys today. I'm like, hey, this is what we're doing. And nobody said no. So it shows you how genuine this really is. And especially when they see these videos coming out of these people, tears in their eyes. Because, God, Dan, imagine you've worked on this your whole life and something completely out of your control takes it away from you. It's not right.
Yeah.
And these people have had it taken away from them, and it's not right because they're just they're literally losing not only their customers, but their employees to the counties. So when they do reopen, they're going to have a hard time finding people not only to sit in those chairs, but to work on the other side of the bar because somebody that needs that $500 a week from their job to pay their rent can't wait for the place they love working at to reopen. They have to go to the county and find another job. And, the detrimental effects of this are going to be so long-standing because now you've not only done it short-term, but you're doing it long-term because you let your city residents go to the county and discover a new meal that they never knew about, make a connection with somebody behind the bar that is now their personal favorite server, and instead of coming to the city 3 times a month, they're down to 1 time a month. And it's bad.
Maybe no times.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, man. Well, because if it's not there anymore, if it's boarded up, they're not coming back anymore. And
people are creatures of habit.
Exactly. It is. So and not only that, but the Ravens had a hell of a playoff run this year. So you and your buddies go to a certain place and they're winning and winning. It's your new good luck spot.
Right.
So when the season opens next year, they're going to be like, hey, remember last year it was a good luck spot. They won 6 in a row. We got to go back there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So absolutely, and back to you and your family again. What really impresses me, and I hope people take in is your place. This is all happening, and you're doing this at a time your family's business was shut down.
Yeah.
So it's what always has really genuinely impressed me about you. Like your restaurant was shut down, your family business was shut down, and you're thinking, how can I help everybody else?
Right.
And that just it goes back to you and you're using the tools. You got a lot of avenues with Jimmy. You had like the food trucks and your social media,
Exactly.
your
Meal prep service.
business, meal prep service.
Right. So if anybody was equipped to handle a pandemic, it was us.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Which I feel guilty about, and I think it's BS because I hate watching people tell these 60, 70-year-old restaurateurs, you got to pivot, bro. You have to adjust. Like, no, man, that's not how it works. These people have been doing this for 40 years this way. You can't expect them to go on Twitter and tell people how to come to their carryout. That's not how things work.
Yeah.
And like I said, I felt guilty because we were able to have the food trucks. Did I know there was a pandemic coming and that's why I opened up a food truck? No. Did I know there was a pandemic and that's why I should invest more money into e-commerce? No. Did I know there was a pandemic coming so I should set up Venmo accounts for the bartenders? No. It happened and we just happened to be set up. But I'm the exception. Don't look at me and be like, oh, see, he can do it, so all of you can do it. That's BS. That's why I started this. I had to stick up for them and be like, just because we're treading water, we're not doing well. Just because we're treading water doesn't mean the rest of them are. And you need to not only help them right now, but you need to become aware of who they are. And when things open back up, go help them out. So this kid with the magic place, Illusions, my hope is that all the Jimmy's followers, and we're approaching 300,000 between the 3 major platforms, find out about this guy and take their date there when he reopens and overwhelm him with love and success. And I know, tomorrow, me and my buddies, we're all going to the Angle Inn to watch the football game because we want to show them support and continue this movement. It's not just a financial movement. It's love, and it's Baltimore. It's neighbor to neighbor, and it's who we are. And hopefully when the Book of Baltimore is written, they're going to remember 2021 as the year that Baltimore took care of its own.
That's great. Well, I know. I'm so happy to hear that Illusions got that. Actually, it was Bruiser who told me about that place.
Really?
He took his ex-girlfriend there on a date, and he was like, "You'd probably really like this place." And so then I was like, "Oh, okay." So I went the next weekend, and it was a fantastic show. So I'm really happy that he's been supported.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people probably don't realize the razor-thin margins that most restaurants operate
All
under,
restaurants.
I mean, right, most if not all. So they're not in a position. So like you said, you can't just flip a switch and say, okay, well, we're going to modernize now and do all these things. Most restaurants aren't in a position to be able to do that. So, you're able to do it, and you doing it and giving back in this way is so powerful and so hopeful. I mean, gosh, I supported myself through college working in restaurants. If something like this had come along, I'd have just been homeless. I mean, you've worked in restaurants. You know, you don't have that stability.
Yeah, the same way as a wrestling community, we hate the word fake. People in our industry hate the word real job.
Right.
Go get a real job. Well, I have real bills.
Yeah.
All 152 of us that work at Jimmy's, so I need real money to pay those real bills.
Yeah.
And we're pretty good at doing our real job.
Yeah.
So don't, admonish us. Don't tell us how to live our lives.
Right.
And it's a very respectable, honest living.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
for sure. And you do take very good care of your employees. We didn't talk about that yet. Actually, a couple of my students are employees there. And, You are taking care of them. You've done some really creative, innovative things with the raffles, and people can do that. If you want to tell us a little bit about that, if you're going to keep doing it.
Well, hopefully it's over.
Okay.
But during the most recent lockdown and during the first lockdown too, I promised them that they would not be laid off. They were scared. We were all scared, no matter what business you were in.
Sure.
But especially our business, they were scared that they had no income and they weren't going to be able to support their kids in some cases, pay their rent, pay their tuition. And I promised them, I said, look, you stick by me and you promise to do your best, whether it's calling customers and thanking them for purchasing something online, whether it's responding to comments on social media, whether it's working the food trucks. I'll have work for you. And I will also find new ways for us to make more money, whether it's the raffles, whether it's the T-shirts, whether it's the online drink tutorials. You're going to make money. Like, you got to be ready to work. Like, it's not going to be welfare. Like, you're not going to get to sit home and collect a check. But you got to be ready to work, and we made it through 2 rounds, and there was a feeling of relief. I told my fiance that yesterday was my favorite day ever working at Jimmy's. My favorite day besides that was the Make-A-Wish with Roman, because that was amazing seeing this little kid light up. Tripp was his name. But yesterday it was like such a feeling of relief. We just wanted to work, man. We wanted to serve people. We wanted to bust tables. We wanted to make drinks. That's all we wanted to do for 6 weeks. We wanted the opportunity to make an honest American living. And it finally came back. Imagine if the one thing you love was just taken away from you while everybody around you could do it for 6 weeks, and then you get to do it again. It was awesome.
It'll be like our first show back.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. And I told Dan,
sure.
you got to get a stadium for that. You can't do it here.
Yeah, we already are thinking about that. We're looking at bigger places.
Obviously, we know that the first show back, we're all excited, is probably going to be a big one. We're going to celebrate RJ's life. Yeah. So, and I know
I'll be on that card.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not going to have any problem filling that card out.
Yeah.
Not at all.
So, well, John, listen, I know you got to get going. You guys are just opened back up, and we got Phil Stamper coming up. Giving us the Indie Roundup for what happened this past week and weekend in indie wrestling. He was traveling, I think, in Florida.
Yeah.
And then we'll come back after that and finish up with some things we want to talk about. But, man, I love you, and I'm so thankful of the friendship that we've developed and for everything that you've done.
Likewise, man. Love you too. And
Thank you.
sorry I blew you off that first time around, man.
Sorry.
It's all good now.
You see that even then I didn't even then I was trying to cover for him. I didn't want to bury him. I'm not going to bury him and say they just treated me like a jabroni. We'll have a conversation. But yeah, man, no, seriously, you've become one of the people I'm really close friends with, and I look up to, I try to model what we do after everything you guys do, and I'm so thankful for.
Well, I guess we all follow the Vince model, I guess, to an extent.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, good luck. Thanks for coming in, John.
Yeah, thanks for coming on down.
All right,
Absolutely.
Send it to Phil Stamper for this week's Indie Roundup.
He'll fill us in.
Yep.
I can't wait to be back in front of you again. This past weekend saw a lot of wrestling action. There was the Independent Wrestling Expo out in Texas. I happened to go down to Florida this weekend for Ignite Pro Wrestling. Had an opportunity to see some folks that I hadn't seen in a while, including Casey Lennox, a Baltimore native, made her way down to Florida herself. So that was great to see her in action. I got to see the international superstars, or two of the international superstars, in Ellie and Justin Blacks. I really love those guys. I really like seeing them in action. Overall, Ignite Pro Wrestling, great time, fun time. It was also just great to be in Florida. You know, I'm a Maryland guy. In Maryland, it's 30 degrees. We're getting an ice storm right now. I was able to go to Florida, 70-degree weather, eat outside at a restaurant. You know, great time. I had a great time. But this coming week, even more action. And you know what? One of the things that has been very challenging for both wrestlers and companies is trying to keep content alive and fresh. And, you know, certain jurisdictions, you can't have a crowd come together right now. You can't meet inside. And weather is not really amenable to allow for an outdoor event to provide some of the physical distancing that's required for some public events right now. But there are some events that have adjusted to doing things like closed-door events. So, for example, the School of Morton, ran by WWE Hall of Famer Ricky Morton, one half of the Rock and Roll Express. Every Sunday night, his training school, the School of Morton, puts on a live event at 5:05 p.m. The School of Morton, live on their Facebook page. You can go check them out. Constant, brand new content. And some companies are trying that out, or they're doing the same kind of thing with no crowd events through different streaming platforms like IWTV or Fight TV or highspots.com. All people trying to come together to provide content. Even different independent wrestlers are doing things like, well, launching brand new podcasts, or maybe they have a game streaming that they're doing. I mean, I'm no stranger to streaming a couple games here and there myself, and talking with other people in the world of wrestling while I'm doing gaming, just as a way to bring new content for people to go, hey, we're still around here. At the same time, there are still people who are trekking up and down the roadways. I mentioned the international superstars. I mean, Justin Blacks, one week you saw him on NXT, one week you see him on AEW Dark. So it's interesting to see that people are keeping up those loops. I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't mention other folks that are making some of those same kind of rounds, like Ariel Dominguez out of Florida, Casey Navarro out of New Jersey, who had opportunities to go to both AEW and to WWE for different shoots for different reasons. But great to see them making their own names out there and getting some attention on them. And that is still possible in the middle of middle of the big gimmick right now, right? But so let me go down through the list a little bit and tell you about some of the events that are coming up. One of the other weekly events that happens is every Thursday. AR Fox runs a school called WWA4 out of Atlanta, Georgia. They're having events every Thursday night. On Saturdays down in Texas, Metroplex Wrestling. Metroplex is a place like I have my very fine-tuned eye on the things that they're doing at Metroplex because so much great talent is down there. They have their own setup. They have their own building. You know, sounds familiar, right? So I want to see a little bit more of them. They have some great guys like Dexter Hardaway and Wesley Crane and Matthew Palmer, who you just got to see over at Impact Wrestling against Moose. So I want to see more action from them. I kind of want to make my way down there, to be very honest. Let's see what else. This Friday, we have Pro South Wrestling out of Alabama. We have Resolute Wrestling in Tennessee. We have VIP, which is an affiliate of Pro Wrestling Dallas out of Halton City, Texas. I also like watching their stuff. I've gotten an opportunity to actually bring them on to one of my wrestling streams. Pro Wrestling Conquest out of West Virginia. And then on Saturday, 2 Victory Championship Wrestling events out of Alabama, Revolutionary Wrestling Entertainment out of Arkansas, Generation Championship Wrestling, The Real GCW out of Florida, Lariato Pro Wrestling Guild in Georgia, NAWA in North Carolina, Ohio Wrestling Alliance in Hilliard, Ohio, the Tennessee Wrestling Alliance in Tennessee, New Texas Pro Wrestling out of Texas. I guess I didn't have to say that. Did I? Did I really have to say Texas? New Horizons Pro Wrestling in Australia. And this Sunday, World Class Wrestling Association in Arkansas, Firestar Pro Wrestling out of North Carolina, and the School of Morton. School of Morton is one of those places, closed-door event, but running brand new content every single Sunday, brand new shows every single Sunday that you can check out on their Facebook page at 5:05 p.m. every single Sunday from the School of Morton. That's right, Ricky Morton. Rock and Roll Express. I'm looking forward to what's going to come next in the world of professional wrestling. It's an interesting time for all of us, and I can't wait to talk to you next week. In the meantime, if you have folks that you want to say, hey, why aren't you talking about these guys? Hey, why don't you get a look at these guys? Feel free. Message us at the MCW Podcast. Let me know about it. Let me bring them up. Let me talk about them. And how can you find out about more independent wrestling events coming up in your area? Check out WrestlingCalendar.com for the latest upcoming wrestling events. And hey, if you're a wrestler and you're looking for events to get on, that's not a bad way to go too. My name has been Philip Stamper. It's been great to talk to you about this week's Independent Wrestling Roundup.
We hope you're enjoying this week's episode of the MCW Cast. At MCW Pro Wrestling, much like many small businesses throughout the country, the pandemic has presented many challenges. For a company like ours that hosts events with live audiences, the impact has been even more severe, and all of our forms of revenue have been cut off. In order to continue to engage with our fans on a regular basis, we made the decision to begin to produce the MCW Cast and are providing it for absolutely no cost on Facebook Live, Twitch, YouTube, and SoundCloud. If you'd like to support us during these challenging times, you can do so in several ways. The most popular way is to buy us a coffee to help fuel the cast. Just go to buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast, and for just $3, you can buy the cast a coffee, or you can choose to become a member of the cast for just $5 a month and receive several special perks. That's buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast. You can also contribute directly on Cash App, MCW Wrestling, or on Venmo, MCW-Wrestling. You can also show your support for the MCW Cast while sporting some great gear by going to teespring.com/stores/MCWcast to pick up a full line of official MCW Cast merchandise, from coffee mugs and face coverings to t-shirts and sweatshirts. Also, don't forget to comment in the threads on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch to get your questions answered on a future episode. And you can also send us a tweet using the hashtag AskMCWCast. Thank you for your support, and now, back to the show.
Thank you, Phil. One of my favorite parts of any podcast is when Phil fills us in. And yes, I do enjoy saying it that way. I like saying it that way. I think it's fun.
I don't think there's anybody that gets around on the indies much like Phil.
I agree, but you know what? I'm going to be following him. He mentioned his trip to Florida, and I will be heading down to Florida next month. Florida, of course, being one of the only places where the jurisdictions are lifted for gatherings. So pro wrestling does live in Florida, and throughout the pandemic it has. So I'll be looking forward to making my, I believe, third trip down to Florida during the entire pandemic. I've been down there 3 times now for shows. So.
And what organization is that?
So the company that I work for that has been traveling to Florida is called ICW, No Holds Barred. Kind of deathmatch oriented wrestling, which of course has to be outside because of the light tubes, the glass.
Right.
You really can't have that indoors because that could cause some damage to the fans. So they've been all outdoor shows, and it's been a blast, really. Kind of a little more level of anxiety with the traveling.
Right.
You still have to go through TSA and all of that. But the shows have been a hit, and like I said, I'll be following in Phil's footsteps, heading right down to Florida next month for ICW No Holds Barred.
What are you seeing when you go down there for the group? Are they drawn pretty decent, or are fans comfortable coming out?
Well, they're outdoor deals, believe it or not. And I mean, like I did one in November, so even though it's down south, it was still chilly.
Right.
So yeah, the fans were bundled up. They were evenly spaced out. There is no mask mandate in Florida. There's not a mask mandate, and I'll tell you, an interesting experience I had was at one point during one of the shows, I mentioned, hey, we want to take care of ourselves. We want to take care of each other. I see a lot of masks out there, and we want those masks up. And when I tell you, some of those fans looked at me literally with their arms folded, like I know he's not talking to me because I'm not putting anything up. And I was a little kind of taken aback. I'm a pretty popular announcer. People like what I have to give and offer up, and typically I get cheers for things I say, but
like the fire exits.
Like
no one does it like you do.
Well, indeed, and other aspects of my spiel, if you will, always welcomed and adored by the fans. But when I made that announcement about, hey, I see a lot of masks out there, and we like that, so let's get those masks up to take care of our fellow neighbor, those Florida people were looking at me like, get a rope. And I was like, okay, never mind. No more announcements about that for the duration of the show. But you know what? That notwithstanding, the fans are just so happy to see something, to be able to experience something live. And I think that's one of the reasons they assume the risk. And knock on wood, so far so good. Several events during the pandemic with ICW No Holds Barred, and we've been knocking home runs out of the park, and no COVID cases or outbreaks. So
yeah, I think that and we're seeing signs of life here.
Oh yes,
Maryland,
right.
Kind of fill the fans in where we are. Right now, the State Athletic Commission, the Maryland State Athletic Commission, is pretty strict on their guidelines. Working with the Maryland Health Department and a company like Ring of Honor, what they're doing in order to have shows or have their television tapings, and the protocols that they're being held to are pretty strict, and that's okay. They're doing what they have to do, but right now, it's that's still with no fans. Mm-hmm. So we're from an independent wrestling company that's not on national television. It doesn't make sense for us to go through those protocols right now to have an event with no fans and no national television show.
Right.
Ring of Honor is kind of in a position where they have to do what the state wants in order to tape and have content to send out to over 100
affiliates.
Stations. Yeah, affiliates all over. So, but what you're seeing now, I think, in the past week or so, with the governor wanting schools to go back and Baltimore City loosening up, it seems like guidelines. It looks like for the first time in 10 months that there might be some hope on the horizon. I don't think we're going to return next month. I think it's going to be February or March. Realistically, me and Dennis, are hoping for maybe like late spring, early summer to be able to do something or get back to a live event with fans. But obviously, it'll be as it is a week by week process to kind of see where we get back to it. But at least for us, I think it's the first in last week or so. First time in a while that we've kind of been hopeful, like, okay, well, there's some signs, like things might be loosening up and we might be getting to a point where it's possible.
Yeah. I know that this isn't planned or anything, but I just am talking to you as a promoter. I work with a lot of different promoters across the country, and a lot of them have been doing these kind of closed door tapings where there are no fans. There's not even really a roster of wrestlers, maybe like the two wrestlers and the ref that are involved in the match. They come, they do it. I'm thinking of things like The Masked Wrestler, which is an IWTV series, an episodic series where we would come together, no fans, just whoever was involved in that particular contest, and get it in the can for digital distribution. So is that anything you ever kind of thought about, the benefit?
So me and Dennis have talked about it, and again, to take this back to when this first happened, we really believed, like I guess like most people, when they said 2 weeks, that it was only going to be 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then, maybe a month, and then 2 months. So it wasn't until all of a sudden we're shut down for 4 or 5 months that we're like, oh my God, then it becomes very much like you're in the twilight zone. Like, are you ever going to get out of this? And I just have never, and I still have trouble watching and grasping wrestling without the fans and producing wrestling without the fans. It's really tough. We did it, obviously, when we put it together, what we put together with RJ's show, but it's really difficult for me to grasp. Have we, now since it's been 10 months and we haven't had anything, right now to do it or film it in the state of Maryland and do what the protocols that the athletic commission have in place for like Ring of Honor, it's not financially, doesn't make financial sense for us to do stuff.
I understand. Yeah.
I mean, I know that Ring of Honor is spending tens of thousands of dollars to put people in a bubble, to quarantine them for days, for what the state of Maryland has put forward. Now, that being said, it appears that other surrounding states, like maybe a West Virginia, might be a possibility. Maybe Delaware, they might be a little less lenient. States maybe without athletic commissions sanctioning and calling those shots. Will it get to a point in the next couple months that we could possibly do something like that, go to another state, film some shows for digital distribution? That's possible, and we've talked about it. I wasn't really a fan of it, but now when we're coming up on a year without producing a show, it's something we're talking about, maybe to fill this last gap, to get over the finish line of returning to the live shows with people in Maryland. I probably wouldn't spend the money because it just wouldn't make sense to film it in Maryland as long as the guidelines and protocols stay as they are. It's just it's a lot to ask just to film a show to air on the internet. Again, Ring of Honor and Sinclair, they do it. Absolutely makes total sense for them because they have hundreds of television stations and they need that fresh weekly content. But for us right now in Maryland, no. But it's possible we might end up in the next couple months doing something like that in one of the surrounding states that opens up.
Well, and we're at a point now, 10 months into this, where we have the benefit of hindsight. So we're able to look at these other companies who have gone out there and done the empty arena shows, and we can kind of learn from their mistakes. So when we do it, which I think it probably will be the first step, to get something in there. So, we can kind of look and say, hey, this worked, this didn't work, so we can do that. And this also, being at this crossroads is what has led us to do things like this with the podcast and, finding some other ways. We've been putting out new content on our Pro Wrestling Tees site. We have our Teespring site where you can get merchandise. And, of course, we've got the podcast here that you can support, through Buy Me a Cup of Coffee or Venmo, PayPal. We're trying to do some things here to kind of, bridge that transition. And also to add to that list is our training center. Right. We've been able to operate as a gym. We've got lots of people coming through the training center. We've got very strict protocols in place. So we are in a position that we've got some things going on in the works that maybe some of these other companies don't have. And when we talked to John earlier about restaurants, I'm expecting to see a lot of these indies shut down and fold up because they're not going to be able to necessarily recover from this. They don't have the means that we have to be able to do some different things like we're doing.
Yeah.
Right. And we don't know. That's why I asked about the fans coming out because that's the other thing, too. We don't, we had, at the MCW Arena, we had shows every 6 weeks or so for 6 or 7 years.
Packed shows. Yeah.
Hundreds of people. Are you going to be able? There's a lot of things to think about as a promoter. So, are you going to be able to, 500, 600 people? If we get to where we can do that, are you going to have 500 or 600 people that want to come out? Then you get to so when you bring in a lot of the stars, guys that come in, what they charge. Some of them charge. Is it going to be? Do you have to do shows for a while and not bring in the stars because maybe you won't get enough people comfortable coming out to support that? So there's a lot of balls in the air.
Yeah, can you imagine an autograph session where you're standing 6 feet apart from Kurt Angle? You know what I mean? Like
you just spent $100 to meet Kurt Angle and get a piece of paper signed, and you got to stand over there, stand on the ice.
Yeah.
Those big money, autograph signings, a lot that we did over the years. They, look, if we're charging $150 to meet somebody, there's a good chance we were probably paying them $20,000-$25,000.
Right. Right.
No, big money.
Yeah.
So are guys like that? Are some of those? Are there anybody that's coming in off WWE television? Are they going to want to sit there and be comfortable with 150, 200 people coming up? Doing pictures like so that's the whole thing. That was our business model, doing the meet and greets, working out packages with guys. Usually, everybody negotiated different, but that was part of the package, like doing the meet and greet along with the show, an appearance on the show, or wrestling on a show, depending on who it was. And is that going to be viable? Or are the talent going to be comfortable doing that? Are fans going to want to do that? It's gonna be easing back into it. It's just it's I guess one step at a time. And the first step for even worrying about whether we can do meet and greets is just being able to do shows. I mean, look, I'm all for people being careful with their health, but man, I miss it. It's been taken out of our lives, and I miss doing the shows. I miss seeing the fans. I miss producing and promoting the shows, and I just want to get back to doing the shows just as much as probably anybody, and that's the first step.
Yeah, well, in the meantime and in between time, with not having as much wrestling, new fresh wrestling to digest, I actually overheard a very interesting topic over the past week that was discussed on another podcast, another pro wrestling podcast, the Jim Cornette Experience, our friend Jim Cornette, for now. The question was posed from a fan, and I'm throwing this out there for all our hashtag Ask MCW Cast Twitter universe users, because we want questions as well. The question was, what is the best booked non-wrestling entertainment out there? I don't want to say TV show because it could be movie, but what would be, in your opinion right now, with not so much fresh wrestling storylines, that thing that attracts us to watching every week of SmackDown, watching every week of Raw, or whatever have you? What's the best booked with the themes of wrestling show that you watch and you tune into every week?
I'm curious, Larry, when you heard that, because I didn't hear that. What was the answer given?
Well, so for the fan that wrote into the Jim Cornette Experience, they mentioned the Netflix series Cobra Kai.
Ah, excellent.
Yeah, which is, kind of a rehashing or a up-to-date what's going on with all the folks from the Karate Kid, film series from the 80s. I have not seen it, but Dan,
I have not.
I've been.
Oh, you guys got to see it.
And
did you like the Karate Kid?
I love the Karate Kid, and I've had so many wrestling fans, just like how you just encouraged me to watch it.
Love
Tell
Cobra
me,
Kai.
I got to catch up on it, Tara. Maybe you and I can, catch up to the bandwagon
have a watch
here.
Party.
Yeah,
Yeah. They took this iconic movie from 25 years ago, and it's like, it goes dormant for 20, and all of a sudden 25 years later, and they start retelling stories.
Yeah.
Based on, you know what I mean, and going back to, and it was crazy. Like from the first series, when Cobra Kai season 1 came out, it was a YouTube. It blew me away because it's like they, you watch this, right, and it's like Daniel LaRusso, like white meat babyface.
Yeah.
Okay, but then they make you think, wait a minute, maybe he was the heel. You know what I mean? Like through the first, and it like right from Cobra Kai season 1, it sucked me in because I'm like, son of a bitch, he was the heel. Like Daniel LaRusso was the heel. You know what I mean? And it would like, so right away it sucked me in because it's like, I never thought of it like that. When they're telling the story of him and they're going back and like revisiting and the breakup and the girl with Johnny, and they're like, wait a minute, he was the antagonist.
Just like themes in wrestling, okay,
so that was good. That's a good choice.
Yeah, is that your pick though? Would you say that that's the best book television?
No, I Breaking Bad.
Okay, that's another one that I consistently wrestling fans are encouraging me to
I've not
get in.
watched that either.
I haven't either, Tara. I haven't watched Breaking Bad either.
Oh my god! Because if you watch Breaking Bad, I've heard a lot of people say this. A lot of people have said, well, like I watched the first couple episodes and it's slow. If you gotta promise me to commit to the first season because it is slow. It's a slow build.
Okay.
It's a slow build to watch the main characters, the teacher, Heisenberg, to watch him slowly become this character. So the first season is slow. But after that, man,
how many seasons are there?
Like 5, I think.
Okay.
They went out on top. It was like 5. They were smart. They closed it down. And when they closed it down and wrapped it up, it was at a point where it was like a fever pitch where it was really catching on, and people were like buzzing about it, and then they like pull the plug, and everybody's like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
Well, didn't they have that spin-off show, Better Call Saul? Is that the right show?
They did, but it wasn't the same,
Okay.
man. It wasn't like when even me, because I had just gotten into it the season before, and I had caught up on like Netflix. And when they pulled the plug, I was like, "No,
Yeah. Yeah.
no! Like, what are you doing?" Like, I was just really sucked in. I mean, yeah, it's slow character development and just such an interesting story of this. You know, it's he's like a dorky high school teacher. Like most of us probably thought of our dorky high school teachers. He was like a chemistry teacher. And he's, you know, middle class family, struggling to pay their bills. He gets basically diagnosed with cancer. He's overwhelmed. He doesn't have good health insurance. Man, probably the story of so many people in America.
Yeah.
You know, of so much middle class America. And he runs into like a student. He catches him. He's like on a stakeout with like his brother-in-law, who's a DEA agent, and finds one of his students. He was like selling meth. I can't even. You know, they end up, and he basically ends up like making meth, and then like people are like, "Oh my God, this is the best meth ever." It's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, he did this once because he's a chemist." A chemist
Yeah.
makes,
So he has a greater understanding
greater
of it.
understanding and makes this like, and then, excuse me, and then he becomes, then the series unfolds, and then he ends up ultimately being this drug lord, but he transforms from this like dorky teacher, this like to this super heel, but you can't help but love him,
And
you just like fall in love, and you can't. He's doing all this terrible stuff, but like you're like, but this is why. Like you're justifying it, like really in your mind. It's a show that was like I'd be thinking about after, especially the last two seasons, after each episode, like I'm justifying in my mind what he did.
Which is
I mean,
the
that
same.
was terrible, but he needed to do this because of this. Yeah.
Same themes as like in wrestling.
Yeah,
You know how
right.
many times, you know, as growing up 1996, Shawn Michaels could do no wrong.
Oh,
You know, because
man.
I saw him come from the Rockers and turn on Marty Jannetty and all of that.
I'm going to tell you when that happened for me in wrestling, when I was like really connected, like emotionally, like, and it's what Breaking Bad made me think of. Man, when Randy Savage turned on Hogan.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were
I
going to
knew-
say that.
You know, I was in high school, and I was distraught for a couple days, but I justified it, and I was like, you know, he's right, man. Hogan does have lust in his eyes.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, he does, man.
Yeah.
He's lusting, and you know what? He did touch Elizabeth's butt when he was.
Yes, he did.
when
I
he was
remember the
you know what
footage.
I mean?
I remember the footage.
He slapped her butt.
Yep.
And he touched her.
Well,
butt.
he motioned for her to.
Don't bail Hogan out.
Right.
He deserved it. At the
Awesome.
end of
Yeah.
the day.
Yeah,
You know
you're
what I
right. You're
mean?
right. But that's exactly what I'm talking about. Best booked shows that we're talking about all these
Yeah.
years later. Hogan and Savage and Elizabeth. Tara, what about you? What do you think's the best booked show on?
I don't know what's the best book show, but I'll throw out to the fans what I'm currently watching, and if they want to go to hashtag #AskMCW Cast and give their thoughts if they're also watching it, I'm happy to respond. But my two, I'm watching WandaVision and season 2 of Snowpiercer. I love Snowpiercer the movie. I love season 1. Season 2, it's got all the elements of a wrestling show. You've got the politics backstage. You've got all of this, you know, somebody striving to get to the top. Those are my two. So if any of the fans out there listening also are watching those and want to chime in what they think about them, I'm all ears.
Awesome. Well, I want to throw mine out there because when I was listening to the Jim Cornette Experience, I was thinking about what would mine be. Mine is actually a new show that I discovered about 3 years ago. It is called RuPaul's Drag Race. Okay?
You've told me about this.
Yes.
I need to check it out.
Yeah.
I've seen it. I've seen it come up on the you might want to watch this or whatever.
Okay,
Yeah,
exactly,
but
because
I haven't watched
they're
it.
monitoring the types of things that we are entertained by.
Right.
And I wouldn't be surprised if on a lot of wrestling digesting fans, radar or recommended for you would be RuPaul's Drag Race because a lot of the same themes with the ostentatious characters. So the thing about pro wrestling that has always really hooked me is that even though these guys are in competition, there's another competition that's going on, which is like I can execute these moves flawlessly. Mm-hmm. And that's from my trainer. So even though, there's one spectacle that's being put on, one achievement that the competitors are going for. They also are trying to outdo their competitor for the fans to be like, oh, he's the showstopper. Leo Rush is the one that I'm coming back for because of the performance that they put on. Well, RuPaul's Drag Race has those same elements of competition. They're all together to make an overall show, but at the end of the day, there's only one queen that can take the crown. So it's like the element of competition is there. Obviously, they're not fighting. It's more dancing and singing and that type of thing. But that, to me, currently on TV, is the best booked non-pro wrestling show.
Interesting.
It even comes on opposite SmackDown on Friday night. So it almost is in direct competition for that demographic.
Okay.
So
I used to watch another show that he was a judge on, and it was a body art one where they, I cannot for the life of me remember the name of it right now, but it's on Netflix, and that's why that show, I guess, must have come up and recommended because I watched that, and he was a judge on that, and it was really neat because they would just do this gorgeous body art, this spray paint, the like airbrushing body art, and they would always have these different challenges and stuff, and I loved it. So
I'm gonna have to look that one up
when I remember the name of it.
Right on, yeah. Well, but I think Tara, you hit the nail on the head. Fans, we want to know. Like, let's ask that question to ask.
Exactly.
Hashtag Ask MCW Cast. What do you think?
Hashtag Ask MCW Cast.
Yeah, what do you think is the best booked non-pro wrestling show on TV right now? Or even legacy show, And
it's been a crazy week this past week. Something we should acknowledge probably is the passing of Larry King.
Yeah.
He was a journalist and news personality that I always felt was really fair to our industry.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I think he definitely loved it. Even in the worst of times, when everybody else was trashing the wrestling industry, like the unfortunate, Chris Benoit incident, I always felt like Larry King did right by the pro wrestling industry and was always good to it, I felt.
In that instance, and also there have been other times when very high-profile wrestlers have passed, and he gives them their, brings someone on to give them a segment of the show, and just absolutely always really paid the respect, the reverence to what it is that we do, and didn't just basically, another one bites the dust, that type of attitude. So yeah, absolutely. Rest in peace, Larry King, a pioneer in journalism and.
Yeah. Well, one of the great things about him is his natural curiosity. And I know he's spoken about this in past interviews and so forth, but I think that he applied that natural curiosity, the who, what, when, why, and where, to every single interview he did. And whether he was a pro wrestling fan or not, he still approached it the same way that he would approach, an interview with the president or something like that. So I respect that natural curiosity. I'm one of those naturally curious people as well. And I think that was what made him such a great interviewer and why people were willing and eager to do his show and to have that experience with him.
Absolutely. Yeah. R.I.P. Larry King.
Speaking of the president, we have a new one.
Yes, indeed we do. And not all WWE Hall of Famer.
Did you guys watch the inauguration?
I watched some of it. I mean, it was kind of hard to miss it on the day that it was going on, but I watched some of it. I definitely didn't watch it from beginning to end.
Right.
But I watched some of it.
I watched a little of it. My job decided to have a conference that I was presenting at right about the same time.
Oh, fun!
I know. I was like, who booked this?
All right.
Really? I mean, all of us. We were chatting about this. We're like, really, who booked this? So everybody's attention. We all had multiple monitors up because, of course, our conference was virtual, and so I watched bits and pieces of it. But of course, the part I wanted to see was right when I had to present. So that was.
Do you know what my favorite part of the inauguration is? And this has been consistently since the past couple ones, is learning the new president's middle name.
Oh, really?
Oh, my gosh. So we just learned the R in Joseph R. Joseph R. Biden is Robinette.
Really? I never even realized that until you just said that. Now that you think of it, yeah.
Yeah, remember when we learned Barack Hussein? I remember I took a gulp. Because I didn't know. I remember when they swore Barack Obama in and they said, I, Barack Hussein Obama. I gulped. I did the Vince cell like, wait a minute. What did we do here? Joking, but.
Larry, that's fake news.
Well, it's one of the most exciting reveals for me. Herbert Walker, whatever their middle name
I
is.
never even realized that until you just said something. I'm like, you're right. And I didn't even realize, but I remember hearing his middle name and was like, you're right. I'd never heard his middle name.
Well, I had never heard that name before, Robinette.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very unique name. Like, it's like Robin, but Robinette.
Right.
Very
So
interesting. Well, there was also a lot of buzz about what people were wearing to the inauguration and the color scheme.
that's right. We had Michelle was in kind of that crimson, and new vice president-elect Kamala Harris was in the purple. I believe, for her sorority. Along with, there was one other person in purple. I can't remember who it was. Michelle Obama was in crimson for her sorority.
I had it pulled up.
But I'll tell you this much. Yes, the fashion was very high and very noteworthy, all things considered. Gosh, I just lost my train of thought about what I was going to go into next. But yes, a big thing for me was when they had Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, W. and Obama all go into kind of this amphitheater and give an address to the nation about all rallying together around our new leader. And conspicuous by his absence was the former president, as of the time that they filmed that, which was WWE Hall of Famer Donald Trump. He wanted nothing to do with that.
So I thought for Bill Clinton, because he just always pops me. One of the most interesting things from the inauguration was him falling asleep. Did you see like the memes or something?
Oh,
Him, like,
no.
There was, it got overtaken by Bernie or something. It was like a clip of this, like anything with Bill Clinton quick just pops me. So
Yeah.
quick. I mean, I pop huge for Bill Clinton. Yeah, because I didn't see all of it, but there was like memes going around of him. Did he fall asleep or something on it?
I wouldn't be surprised. It was a very long, arduous
it was like
ceremony.
It was a meme, but it was like starting to trend, but it got overtaken by like
Bernie.
meme.
Yeah.
But honestly, Bernie meme overtook like anything with Joe Biden being inaugurated.
Pretty much.
Well, you mentioned that it was a long, drawn-out thing, and I'm relating this to wrestling, the lack of fans in attendance, let's say. So there was a limited crowd, of course, socially distanced and spaced outside. It was cold out, as we could tell from Bernie.
Yeah.
It was very chilly out. But that's, probably what wrestling shows are, we're going to have smaller crowds and stuff like that. I mean, one good thing is that this year we do not have to have a debate about the size of the inauguration crowd.
Oh, yeah.
So that's nice.
Yeah.
But what I'm wondering is, you mentioned that it was long, arduous, and drawn out. Like, there wasn't that same buzz of excitement of 1 million people out on the lawn, cheering and stuff. So, that it has that effect.
Well, it fits right into kind of everything. This last like 10 months has been nothing the same.
Right.
Guys, can you imagine the WrestleMania we just had? Remember that WrestleMania they had in the Performance Center with no one?
I didn't. The first WrestleMania. No, I haven't watched it. I won't watch it. I can't watch WrestleMania. I can't.
Well,
It's
Dan,
the only WrestleMania I haven't watched. I understand.
Did you
what
watch?
it is.
Did you watch Undertaker versus AJ Styles cinematic? Oh
I didn't
man.
watch. And I know people said you should, but WrestleMania is just it was so much about the spectacle, and I didn't watch it.
Yeah.
I couldn't. I haven't. It's the only WrestleMania I haven't watched, and I just haven't been able to bring myself to sit down. And I know people have said that and that match, but yeah, for me, it's just not the same,
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I enjoyed Undertaker versus AJ Styles. I also enjoyed Drew McIntyre winning the championship and then immediately being challenged. Like, immediately before he even got to the back to do photos, kind of like Brett and Yoko at WrestleMania 9, and then immediately accepting the challenge. So you get like a bonus match when you think you're about to see the WWE logo. Thanks for joining us, guys. And then there was a bonus match, and it actually wasn't that bad, I thought. So
I just appreciated it wasn't 7 hours. So that was
How long was it?
not
Just
7
not
hours.
it was 2 nights, wasn't it? It was night 1 and night 2. Yeah, night 1 and night 2.
So that's good. Well, and I think that's, that was really smart on their part, too, because people don't want to be sitting there stuck to their TVs for that long. I mean, it was, and because it was different, and because they had different matches and stuff that they were doing, the cinematic ones and stuff like that, I think it made sense.
Yeah, I did definitely fall asleep through a lot of it because it just is not that same fervor.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I was like, the inauguration like nothing we'd ever seen before, WrestleMania like nothing we'd ever seen before, and hopefully there's a light at the end of this tunnel.
Well, talking about wrestling and the inauguration, at what point do they book Trump back into this? When does the heel come back?
I mean, I think he's got to come back. He'll definitely resurface. It's just on what avenue of social media. I'll remember not too long ago when he first started the campaign, someone tweeted to him, "When will you be back on WWE Raw?" And he actually replied. This was not a news person. This was not like it was just someone. And he replied one word: soon.
Wait, this was after he.
This was in 2016, before he was president. When he was doing the campaigning to become president, someone tweeted to him, "When are we going to see you back on WWE?" And he tweeted one word: soon.
So remember the first episode of SmackDown?
I remember on Fox it was
being talked to, and apparently that word was he was going to do it, but then I guess. Politics.
Yeah, politics.
That, and Fox, I guess, was like, no. That's the word I get. I'd never had any official. I had probably as much insight as anybody else not involved in WWE, but the stories you kind of heard were like, yeah, I guess Vince, it was talked about, and that would have been huge.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, that's the one thing I think Vince has kind of like, even though he's got an obvious friendship with Trump.
Oh, yeah.
But he's just kind of stayed away, so I guess they stayed away from it because they didn't want to turn off fans that were. But
he let Linda do all that work, all that out front work, and he was behind the scenes there.
So,
hey, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
We talked about Royal Rumble last week. Our predictions. I guess some new participants were announced. Entrants. Do you see any?
I still don't, because Brock Lesnar makes such limited appearances, and he pays him so much.
Right.
I mean, I'm just looking at it that promoter standpoint. If I'm paying Brock Lesnar the money per appearance that he's paying, he always. That's one thing with Brock. A lot of guys you see that they call it. You hear people call it the 50-50 booking.
Mm-hmm,
They do 50-50 booking with guys.
Ricochet loses, Ricochet wins.
Right. And it's. I think personally, it's so detrimental.
Oh God,
it doesn't help. But with a guy like Brock Lesnar, when you're paying guys, tens of thousands of dollars to hundreds of thousands of dollars per appearance, you can't really do 50-50 booking with a guy like that. You kind of got to. I mean, that's just me.
Something, Dan. I remember my prediction last week was Bobby Lashley for the Royal Rumble win, and I think now that I kind of processed what I said last week and processing what you're talking about this week. That is the dream match that we have never seen.
Bobby Lashley wants it real bad.
He wants it real bad. They both have MMA backgrounds.
I'd like to see it.
I would watch that.
Yeah. We want to see it before they're too old.
Yeah.
I'm one to talk, but while they still can go, that's the match I'm banking for. We didn't get Undertaker Sting. I'd love to see Bobby Lashley and Brock, so I'm sticking with Bobby Lashley to take the whole dang on deal.
Cool, and I'm sure as the week progresses, Royal Rumble's coming up next Sunday, so I'm sure as the week progresses, we'll have some more entrants. I think that there's still 17 or 18 spots open for the men's Royal Rumble.
I've heard rumors of Cena, The Rock. I've heard all types of rumors of people who might get in this thing, so.
My favorite part of the Royal Rumble is when they throw in, the old school guys.
Yeah.
They're not winning, but it's just the pop, when you hear their music hit.
Again,
that's my favorite part.
I agree,
That's what, to me, how awesome was Edge?
Except for the camera cut, that weird camera cut. I remember watching that and just being furious.
Yeah.
His first move back, the spear, it cuts to the crowd. And I just didn't, I was so furious about that. And for me, it was a few years back in Madison Square Garden where they brought Piper and Snuka out back to back as surprise entrants to the Rumble. And they had their kind of square off, at 60 years old in the Rumble, But I'm sticking with my prediction. And I'm looking forward to whatever they give us for the Royal Rumble.
All right. Well, with that being said, it's probably time for us to take it home, right?
Yeah. And you know what? All this talk earlier tonight with John in here talking about the great food and the service at Jimmy's Famous Seafood. I know I mentioned it a little bit. We talked about the Bruiser Burger. I just want to tell our fans that if they'd like to support Jimmy's Famous Seafood and also help out the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, go check out the Bruiser Burger. It is a pound of meat. It is delicious. I will
It
say
is
that I've had.
amazing.
Yep, you've had
is
it. You haven't had it
absolutely
I
yet.
haven't had it just yet. But my mouth is watering right now looking at it.
Delicious, but $1 from every purchase goes to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society until they establish a fund in Bruiser's name. So if you'd like to, MCW fans, support us. Have a great burger. Dan, let me ask you: did you eat the whole thing?
I had to take part of it home. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
The Bruiser burger made me tap out.
I mean, that's like basically like a bruised mission on your stomach.
Yeah.
Dude.
I ate it. I ate the whole thing.
Wow.
In one
And
sitting.
part of it-
But I
part-
didn't eat the bun or the fries. I have to say.
Okay, well then-
I don't do carbs. So, but I ate the pound of.
I
It
need to
was
get like you.
delicious. It was so good.
Part of it probably had to do with the crab dip that I ate before that.
Oh, so yeah, that's what gets you is the appetizers. You have some
which
mozzarella
everything
sticks.
is, amazing at Jimmy's.
Absolutely,
It's
yeah.
great,
Especially
yeah.
the staff. I love that staff.
So, and you can get this for carryout or you can dine in because now they're open for dining in, but you can also pick that up for carryout. I'm hoping that it makes its way to a food truck. I think that would be awesome.
I think one of these nights after our podcast, we're gonna have to head to Jimmy's right after. I think that we might as well, and maybe film a little something there, and
We'll have the Bruiser Burger Challenge.
that's what I'm thinking. That sounds like something that
Maybe
I
that's an episode of the MCW cast.
Yeah, on the
All
road.
right. If you'd like to see us tackle the Bruiser Burger Challenge, go to Ask MCW Cast on Twitter. And
Tell us who you think would
tell
win.
us.
Out of all three, I haven't had it yet. Tara got through it with no bun, no carbs, and Dan had to tap out.
I had to tap out.
Yeah, but I'm up for the challenge.
All
I think
right.
we should do something.
Hey,
And in addition to the Bruiser Burger, great cause. We're always giving back. That was the whole theme of how we can give back to each other and take care of our fellow man and woman. Just wanted to shout out, buy me a cup of coffee because we're still, we looking for
Our
those.
coffee. buymeacoffee.com/MCW.
And the mugs. Don't forget about
right.
these cool mugs, the MCW Cast mugs.
on
Buy us-
teespring.com.
That's right, and I'm gonna like I said, I'm gonna bring coffee in and sort of sample it and talk to you about it, give you shouts out. So definitely go on to buymeacoffee/MCW Cast. All right, well, Tara, you want to drive this ship home?
I guess so. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us for another exciting week. We had a great guest in studio today, and we hope that you check it out. And we will see you next week. Yep, here at the MCW Cast.
See ya.
Watch hundreds of hours of MCW Pro Wrestling action at MCWRageTV.com. That's MCWRageTV.com.
You make me